Welcome back to Fox Recaps. Today I'm going to explain the movie Downsizing, released in the year 2017. The film begins in Norway at the Edvardsen Institute. A scientist named Dr. Jorgen and his colleague Andreas are talking eagerly about an experiment being successful. The two exchange excited hugs and depart their ways. Fast forward 5 years, Andreas is giving a presentation to a packed audience in an Italian convention center. He meticulously places a box on the podium. He then gives a lecture to the audience about the impacts of global warming and the resulting scarcity of food and water. He goes on to say that their initiative will not only lessen global warming, but will also address the issue of natural resource shortage. Andreas claims that this is the only feasible and humanitarian solution to humanity's most pressing issue. The contents of the box are then revealed by him. The crowd is beyond surprised when they see a small Dr. Jorgen in the box. He has the appearance of a typical human, yet he is much tinier. No one can believe what they're seeing. They take a step forward to get a closer look, but the doctor requests that everyone take a seat. Following this, he starts talking into a little microphone placed in front of him. He and his colleagues devised a technique 5 years ago that lowers all organic material to a cellular level by a ratio of 2,744 to 1. This process turns a man of 1.8 meters to 12.9 centimeters. The method was tried on a vast number of plants and animals, and researchers discovered that it's irreversible yet has no negative side effects. After the process was deemed safe, Dr. Jorgen's team recruited 36 volunteers, along with his wife, who went through the procedure. They have been living as little people ever since. Only dental and other prosthetics must be removed during the surgery. After an hour or two of being rendered tiny, the individual recovers completely. They then bring out the project's 36 volunteers, who are now little humans. They've spent the last 4 years in the world's first tiny colony. They've also given birth to the first tiny baby boy named Ronnie Nestard. Hearing this, the audience applauds enthusiastically. They believe that this is by far the most significant discovery in human history. Following the presentation, the idea of downsizing starts being discussed worldwide. People all across the world are stunned when beautiful ads about the discovery are shown on television. The ads urge everyone to live in the smallest possible way to save the world and live a better life. One of the viewers is Paul Safranek. He and some other people in the pub stare at the commercial in wonder. He returns home to see his ailing mother. Paul's life revolves entirely around her. She complains about the downsizing program, claiming that the same amount of effort should be placed towards finding a treatment for her condition. Cut to 10 years later, Paul's mother has long passed on. Paul is now married to Audrey Safranek and works as an occupational therapist. Sadly, the couple is having financial difficulties. Because of it, the two are compelled to move to a new home. Meanwhile, the downsizing program has grown in popularity over time. Several teeny-tiny colonies have sprouted up all over the planet. In fact, 3% of the world's population has been downsized and now lives in such colonies. The Safraneks attend their high school reunion one day, where they run across old friends Dave and Carol Johnson, who have downsized themselves. Everyone at the reunion is surprised to see their many friends. They meet at a friend's house after the reunion, where the Johnsons brag about downsizing being the finest decision they've made in their lives. They currently reside in Leisureland, a little colony in New Mexico. When Paul compliments Dave on his environmental efforts, Dave admits that he just did it for the money. It turns out that expenses are reduced by 90% after downsizing. Before they chose to downsize, Dave was broke in Vegas. Now the two are off on a 6-month journey to Italy, where they'll be enjoying the luxurious life in a massive home. The Johnsons' lifestyle fascinates Paul and Audrey, so they attend a Leisureland conference the very next day. They sit with the audience and watch a downsized guy discuss the advantages of downsizing to them. He stands in front of them, showing them the mansion of his dreams. When the small house is opened, it reveals a lavish interior. Inside the residence, a woman brags about her diamond jewelry, which she claims cost her only $83. Paul and Audrey are intrigued by the miniature's lavish lifestyle. They proceed to a viewing area where they may take in the sights of Leisureland. Nets are used to keep mosquitoes and damaging UV rays out of the colony. The pair is awestruck and finally decides to downsize as well. In the next scene, they encounter an agent who informs them that their $152,000 asset is equivalent to $12 million in Leisureland. Hearing this, Paul and Audrey are taken aback. We later see them selling their possessions at a yard sale to get rid of everything and live as miniatures. The couple drives to the Leisureland headquarters the next day, where they will be downsized. Both are nervous about the procedure, but Audrey seems to be unsure about the decision. In the waiting room, the two are separated. At first, Paul is taken for the procedure. They're told that they'll meet after the surgery when they've already been shrunk. They shave Paul's head and eyebrows off at the start of the procedure since hair can't be shrunk. Then they put him in hospital clothes and sedate him so they can shave off all his body hair. They do the same thing to several other males in addition to Paul. They conduct a dental operation on everyone and remove the artificial teeth, since downsizing cannot be done with dental prosthesis. The downsizers are then brought to the incubation hall, where they're maintained completely nude. After a while, we're shown that everyone has been shrunk. They are now carefully picked up with a spatula and placed on tiny beds. Following this, they're passed down to the Leisureland's little nurses. Their dental prosthetics are reinstalled in their mouths. Finally, the procedure is completed and the people who've been shrunk are sent to rest. Paul is alone in the waiting area when he wakes up. He's greeted by a nurse who presents him with a large cracker. He inquires about Audrey's location, so the nurse sets out to find her. After a while, she comes in with a phone. Audrey is on the other end of the line. She hurriedly informs Paul that her head and eyebrows have been shaved. Then, at the airport, we encounter a bald Audrey with just one eyebrow. Paul is taken aback when he learns that Audrey bolted as they began shaving her brows. She has made the decision not to downsize at the last minute. Through the phone, the two shout at each other. Paul is now alone in the new small city. He is shown to his luxurious house, but he must now live there alone. It's been a year now. Audrey and Paul have divorced and the latter now lives in a new apartment. He had hoped for a simple existence, but the divorce settlement stripped him of half his assets. He's presently employed at a call center and is dating a woman named Kristen. He lives a seemingly boring life. They're eating supper in Paul's room one night when Dusan, Paul's upstairs neighbor, walks in to tell him he's throwing a party. He apologizes to Paul for the noise and invites him to the party if he's interested. Later, Kristen and Paul get into a fight and break up, so Paul decides to go to Dusan's party. There, Paul has the time of his life. He kisses a random female and intakes one of her pills. Paul is taken over by the drug and he has a great time for the rest of the night. He wakes up under a table in Dusan's flat the next morning. Soon, the cleaning crew shows up. One of the workers who limps catches Paul's eyes since he's an occupational therapist. He asks her to sit down and helps her with her prosthetic legs. Paul recognizes the worker as Ngop Lan Chun, a Vietnamese political activist who was jailed and downsized against her will. Ngop Lan's story was broadcasted worldwide then, but eventually it died down. Although Paul is a physical therapist and not a doctor, Ngop Lan brings him to her neighborhood to check on the residents. Even though they're tiny, Paul notices that the location she resides in is in terrible shape. There, Paul meets Ngop Lan's roommate, a severely sick Spanish woman. Ngop wants him to assist her, but he knows nothing about her condition. He instead helps Ngop Lan with her prosthetic limb, but he fractures it in the process. As a result of his screw-up, Ngop Lan makes him do her cleaning job until her new prosthetic legs arrive. Every day, Paul goes to work with Ngop Lan and cleans for her. They gather leftover food from the individuals for whom they work and deliver it to Ngop Lan's colony, where it's distributed to the needy. Even though she's going through a difficult time, she remembers to serve others in her neighborhood. One day, Ngop Lan obtains a cleaning job at Dusan's. Dusan is taken aback when he sees Paul working as a cleaner and mocks him. Paul tells him that he'll have to do this for the next 6 to 10 weeks. Hearing this, Dusan feels sad and decides to help his friend. He invites Paul to accompany him and his buddy Joris Conrad on a trip to Norway, where the first tiny community was established. However, Ngop-Lan insists that she wants to go too, since she was summoned by Dr. Jorgen, the doctor who began it all. He too is a resident of the same colony and is eager to see Ngop-Lan after hearing about her brave demonstrations in Vietnam. The lads are skeptical at first, but they finally agree to go to Norway along with Ngop-Lan. A few days later, they're all on Dusan's boat sailing across a fjord. Suddenly, they come across Dr. Jorgen and his wife, Anne Helen, who are also on their way to the colony aboard their own boat. Dr. Jorgen eventually sees Ngop-Lan and apologizes to her for his technique being used forcefully on her. There, the group is informed about the methane release in Antarctica that will increase global warming by a vast percentage. This cannot be prevented, and the human species will go extinct in 100 years due to mass overpopulation. Downsizing was done to decrease the probability to some level, although only 3% of the world's population has been shrunk. Dr. Jorgen is heartbroken that his invention arrived too late to rescue the planet. At last, he mentions that the damage is irreversible and there is no solution to change it. Later, Ngop-Lan and Paul are in their cabin together. As Paul is examining her legs, they somehow get close and end up having intercourse. The next morning, the group arrives at the first colony. It's a little community where everyone gets along. They are warmly welcomed by the inhabitants. The place is vastly different from Leisureland because it has no nets overhead and isn't as developed. The residents claim that no mosquitoes come there because of the place being too close to the river. Later at dinner, the group finds out that the residents have built a massive vault inside a mountain to protect the colony and humanity in the event of extinction. The whole community, as well as Dr. Jorgen and his wife, are going to enter the vault the next day. Paul, inspired by Dr. Jorgen's comments, also wants to join the colony. He has the impression that he was sent here for a cause. As a result, when Ngop asks him to return with her, he refuses. Meanwhile, Dusan and Joris also make their way back to their house in Leisureland. In the next scene, just a few hours are left till everyone migrates to the vault. Ngop asks Paul if he made love with her because he pitied her or if he actually cares about her. Paul responds that he cares about her, but the vault provides him meaning in his life. When the moment comes, Paul says his goodbyes and enters the vault, leaving the other three outside. However, he changes his mind halfway through, deciding that he loves Ngop too much to leave for the vault. Wasting no time, he returns and embraces her. Meanwhile, the vault's door closes to never open again. In the last scene of the movie, Ngop and Paul live together and aid the people in Ngop's neighborhood. Paul has finally found the meaning of his life with Ngop. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.